Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From wherever you're watching us from, I hope you're keeping well and safe. COVID 19 is still around the booth. Don't forget that. Now, in today's episode, we are going to be discussing something really interesting: blended education, the future of online. Others we call them distance learning. Is it something that we need to think about? Is it something really working? From where you see the sun rise and set, what's your perspective? I'm not here to discuss Africa perspective. I'm not here to discuss the European perspective. I'm not here to discuss the Indian view or whatsoever. I'm here to discuss the 21st century and its related syllabus, the connotations. I remember a couple of years ago that I may not basically be able to remember very, very well is that when we first had the question or the term 21st century, and somebody would definitely identify with me, we had no clue what exactly 21st century meant. Back when we went to school, and for those that are still definitely in college, maybe doing your second degree or your first degree, you had terminologies like industrialization, globalization, and all the likes. And then there is that bracket name, the 21st century. You know, someone is going to tell you, in the 21st century, you can't expect to be behaving like that. But then the question is, when is the 22nd century? But then a few days ago, I asked myself, why don't I first go back to the dictionary and find out what exactly 21st century is? Then I discovered that it was a period through which so many changes are happening. The world is growing, technology is changing, the work life is changing. There are people working from home now. There are people still heading to office, physical office. There are international trade being conducted virtually. There is a bit of a cost element. Others, the cost of living is going high, while others, the cost of living is way around average. We all thinking about these aspects. And then for us, from the human perspective, individual point of view, you're asking yourself, do I really identify with this? Let's give us an example here. I always admire the technology companies, the competitions. We've had Microsoft, Apple, Google, and all, Facebook and the likes. There is no sleeping. There is innovation happening every day. You're looking at international schools in Africa. Students are studying from home, while there is also the other piece of the students that have to wake up every morning and go to class. And then you're asking, what exactly is the issue? We are forced to put ourselves in a position whether a certain mode of life is for a certain class of people. But then 21st century, we have about 100 or so years, 90 something years to go. Within those years, what's going to change? Do we probably need to, follow the trend of international schools? Do we probably need to follow the journey of the international corporate technology companies? Do we need to contest this because we are seeing the sun from a certain point of view? Let me try to bring it even closer. 2019, 2020, there was COVID-19. It sparked around the world. People were working from home. Then you'll also realize that the impact that this COVID-19 caused the different companies, they felt the impact depending on their journey within the expectations of the 21st century. essentially that does not require anybody to settle. It's essentially that require everybody to keep moving. So people who felt they had arrived could not pay their employees because they couldn't get suppliers. They were blocked. Suppliers who did not go to the virtual dimension could not continue supplying. That means they couldn't pay their rent. Schools that believed you need to be here for me to see you, then I can teach you, were closed for years. Over a year, over two, these teachers had no means of survival. Let's look at those particular examples. In a couple of African countries, allow me bring this a bit closer. We had scenarios where the blended learning came through. Blended learning, that's a mode of learning where you're doing both the online and then also the physical. Or probably those who can afford online, they can do the same. They can follow up online, study online virtually, while the rest continue going to class. What did it bring to us? There was an aspect of adaptation. The feeling that this mode of education, this mode of work belonged to a certain category of the companies, the schools. It belonged to a certain individual set in the community. It did not come out so well. But now, in this show, I would like us to weigh between the lines. First of all, let's look at the university students, whether in Europe, whether where. Let's look at the university students. Do they appreciate or understand the future of work and what the workforce is looking out for? Do they realize that some of their parents and relatives are working from home and yet they continue to earn their paycheck? Are we able to ask ourselves what tools those parents and relatives are using at home? Are we able to question the same with what we are getting in class and ask ourselves, what if the institution gave us an opportunity to learn those same tools that our parents are using, so that when we're doing homework at home, we can definitely be able to identify easily with those tools? Do we look at it from that point of view? Are we realizing as young people that today when you apply for a job, you are likely to do this interview online and yet you cannot use Zoom? You are being asked to share your project and yet you cannot do screen share. Now, you get into a job competition with a student who went to a school that embraced online, and they've been asked to produce the assignments. They have been asked to make sure certain qualities of Microsoft programs have been applied before their submission. Are you going to blame that student for being able to do it, and you're going to say that so and so was able to be given the opportunity because of unfair reasons? I don't think that is it. Because what we also need to appreciate is this: the future of work can best be defined by the individual. If you say, for me, I want to continue going to class for one reason or another, I want to go for my physical class for one reason or another, let me tell you something. There is an aspect that you are losing out. Remember, after you have completed your physical classes for all those years, you realize that you now need to start getting an opportunity to learn the way the workplace is designed, then we are going to find ourselves blaming the structure. We're going to blame everybody around us, blame the course that we're doing, everything else. At the end of it all, what are we thinking of? We are not giving ourselves the best rewards. So what we need to think about is, in terms of the online class, if your school or your government gives you an opportunity to do it as if it's not going to last. Because I'll tell you one thing, it is the way of work today. It is the future of work. I will look at myself as an odd man out if my institution does not support blended learning. Because remember, you can't do much. It's not where the world is anymore. The world of today is a world where you don't even need to carry an ATM card. You don't need it to make a purchase. It's a world where you're using your body to sense your identity for the transaction to be processed. You're still in a world where you carry an ATM card. There's a problem. You're still in a world where you're accessing an office premise with a key and a padlock. There's a problem. Remember, if something happened, what is the contingency plan? That you're going to continue doing what you're doing. The other bit, you realize that with the future of the digital learning, the online learning, the e-learning, whatsoever you can call them, you can continue to raise your family as you work. And for the employers, you realize that if you keep pushing your team, pushing your employees to learn, to adopt those agile skills, to adopt those simple certifications online, it's going to contribute towards an improved workplace for yourself and the employees. We need to think through that line. There is no reason as to why we place resistance, because 21st century does not belong to Africa. It doesn't belong to Europe. It doesn't belong to America. It doesn't belong to India. It belongs to you. It belongs to you. So what you need to think of is, ask yourself, am I traveling in the same bus? Why should you sit in the council, a committee of people who are negative to the virtual platform? You're saying, no. For us, you see here, we want our money cash here. We want our people to park the trucks right there. And that's the reason why you see economies are rising at different levels. Because the more resistance you place, the slower you get in. And at the end of the day, you start finding yourself into conflicts. You are doing global business with an economy that is positive about the virtual world, the 21st century context. And when they're telling you we're not going to do this, you're saying, no. We need to pledge a war against this country. Why should you pledge a war? Why should you pledge a war when you've decided that your people will remain the way they are? So my message to the young people is, 1, use your technology wisely. Use your smartphones wisely. When you're in school and there are opportunities for the online sessions, go in and adopt them. Because I'll tell you one thing, it's going to follow you up at the time when you begin to work, and you'll find that there's relevance in actually what you're doing right now. With COVID-19, how many people lost their jobs? You lost probably because you couldn't do something. You lost probably because your school did not teach you, computer session is an option. Which school still takes computer as an option in this day and age? So my message is very simple. the economy, the government, I think what we need to look into is try as much as possible to promote and put the blended education on top of the list. When we find there are gaps within the rural sectors, then that is where the likes of World Bank, the donors, the United Nations, and all those education-related committees need to focus on. Because what's going to come out at the end of it all is people are going to tell you, look, what about the village child? They don't have access to the computer. Now, that is where the future of investment should go. When companies visit, especially the developing countries, why should you go and set up your enterprise in the urban center? Why don't you go to the villages and build the technology right there so that these people, the rural people, can actually understand this is where the world is going? Build up schools. Microsoft and rest, try. If this is where it has to go, why not produce gadgets where these economies can actually afford them and every household? Why not do that? If that's the way to go, why not do that? So I think, in a nutshell, it's a food for thought, but something that we definitely need to think deeper. Technology does not belong to a class of people. It does not belong to a certain profession, whether law, social sciences, arts, whatever. It is the way and the path that the world is taking. Today I can receive my medicine online. I can get a digital doctor anytime I want them. Why should I go in and line and contract other illnesses? Why should I go and battle with police on the road just because I forgot my permit at home? It's something that we can try to do. So for us, the young people, wherever we are, let's think. Let's not contest. Let's not contest anything to do with change. Change in the digital space is change for humanity. It is not change for government. It is not change for, a political party. It is not change for a group of people. It is change for humanity. You're not going to stay there fighting when the world is moving on. Tomorrow you're going to be sitting in for an interview with the rest of the teams and you're asking yourself, hey, what is this? How comes I'm not aware? Are you going to blame anybody? So it is just about you. Take part in adapting the new mode so that you can help your country, help your people to change, help your people to move forward. And with that, I believe that will definitely make the world worth a cheerful place for us.